got a game.
What
My black.
game?
The one. Remember, we haven't done it in a long
Oh, we
time.
both
Like
have
we
on
did it
green.
a year ago. Say it again.
I said we both have on green.
I
Yeah.
know. Nobody has on purple. Now
I
let
have
the record show.
purple nails. I have purple nails. Purple nails.
Okay.
That should count for something. And I had a green and purple and blue necklace on, and I took it off. I forgot. But
Oh,
in
well, y'all look
order
so
for
beautiful.
Oh,
thank
thank
you, you do
you.
too.
Where are you, Corey?
South Carolina.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well,
Yeah.
that's pretty.
Oh, thank you. At Starbucks.
Oh,
So,
You
but
know,
I
oh, and we're
decided,
live.
huh?
Starbucks.
Did I what
You're
now?
not boycotting Starbucks?
Look
Are
here,
you
I gotta boycott
boycotting?
everything. No, I would have to boycott everything. So I'm not, but I don't know. I could give the back power fist while I'm up here. I don't know. I don't know what I can do. But protect
Live and
Palestine.
coming. Hey, Lisa, Happy New Year. Wait, what happened with Starbucks? I didn't know what happened. Oh,
It's
well,
just
never
like,
mind.
you know, well, what didn't happen, right? Like you could say the labor issues, but I think that
Oh
it's
yeah, I didn't know about
the pro-Israel. Is that what you mean?
Yeah, the labor
Yeah.
issues, the
Yeah,
pro-Israel
that.
and
Okay,
the
labor.
yeah.
It's a lot. But I'll probably have
okay.
to
I didn't hear
protest
about
everything I got on. I'll probably have to protest the state of South Carolina where I am. I'll probably
Oh
have to
well,
be
never mind.
protested.
I
So
I feel you. Sometimes it's just too much. I feel like the RNA trying to take back those 5 states. At some point, you got to admit that it's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen.
Okay, are y'all up to playing my game? I got a category for each of you.
okay, we'll try.
Uh, yeah, we'll try. We'll try.
Okay, so
Oh, we live. You don't need to let a sister know.
I know, right?
this is the game is easy. Okay, so it's Black Love. I'm gonna give you a category. I'll do each of you separate, so it'll be more clear. So I have two different categories. I'll give you a category, and you have to name 5 things in that category. I'll give you 10 seconds to name 5 things in that category. And the trick is you don't say I, us, no filler words. You just say the
Oh,
five
wow.
things. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Yeah,
Okay?
I can never do
Uh,
this.
Yes,
uh,
easy. Okay. I
okay.
promise you. Who wants to
Right.
go first?
I'll go first. I'll go first.
Okay. Thank you. My sister friend Nozibele. Okay. So I'm gonna give you the
Uh,
category. I'll give you the category. You got 5 things,
yeah.
10 seconds. So your category is act or not actors, but the characters in A Color Purple. Name 5 of the characters. Go.
Steely, Harpo, Sophia, Mister, and Shug.
You did it. See? Hey, that was easy. That was so easy. Okay. Good.
Almost. I almost went on.
Reset it. We're gonna reset it. Now we got one for the literature professor. So your category. So remember, Dr. Claiborne, same thing. I'm gonna give you a category, 5 things in that category, 10 seconds. I want you to name 5 books
She making this
that
up.
were written by Black women that were adapted to a film or a play. 5 books adapted to a film or a play by Black women. Go.
The Bluest Eye, Linden Hills, Women of Brewster's Place, Color Purple.
Okay, you're over 10 seconds, but I want to
Their
know the
Eyes Are
other one.
Watching God. Their Eyes Are Watching God, which was
Well, oh, you know what you could have done too is
For color
what's
girls.
for
for
Color
Color
Girls
Girls. Hmm.
and the one that was a flop, Toni Morrison's good
Beloved.
one,
Their Eyes Are
Beloved.
Watching God. But Beloved, right?
Yeah.
Well, I think I just said X that out my memory banks, but she also did Their Eyes Are Watching God because I was just
Yeah.
talking to my aunt about that. But a lot of people don't remember when that was like on ABC with Halle
Oh
Berry
yeah,
Yeah.
as
I
Janie.
remember.
Yeah.
I
Oh, do
remember.
Yeah.
you?
That was a
Mhm.
good one. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was a good
yeah.
one. Hey, Sister Tandy.
Hey y'all, how y'all doing?
We
I'm
are good. How
fine.
are you?
You
I'm
were
That
here.
out
was
of
impressive. You know, I couldn't think of one, so I really wanted to know the answer to that question, Corrie. That's why I wanted to give it to you, because the only thing I could think was The Color Purple. And I was like, I know there got to be other books, and Corrie will know the
And
answer.
so, but
There's
what
so
is
many.
so funny is Oprah owns the rights to all of them. So the biggest, and this is partly why I think it's great we're talking about this, because uh, around the 90s, she brought, name all the Black women authors like Toni Morrison, all the film and TV rights to her work. So that means, Beloved, Bluest Eye, Sula, like all of them. She brought all of Gloria Naylor's works, which is Women in Brewster's Place, if you remember that.
Mama
Oh wow.
Um, and so I've been waiting on Mama Day to come out. So I don't know if
Oh
I
my
need to
God.
call Oprah, because I'm like, when that coming out? Because
Yeah.
but she has the rights to that. She has the rights to anything Alice Walker wrote. But partly, I think that is why we're sitting here today. Because if I paid all the money to have all the production rights, it's going to be everything. It's going to be a film, a play. I'm going to come back around, make it a TV
A
show.
board
Y'all
game.
about to
Board
see a board game. Because I done paid for it. So am I going to put this all together?
Some puzzles
Yes,
gonna be
I am.
on
It's
a
going to
tote bag.
be... It's gonna be a cartoon. Like, I expect to see all kind of merchandising, because I know I'm gonna get my money's worth out of this stuff I don't pay for. That's what I'm about to do. Yeah.
Especially if it's proven successful. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
If it's so beloved, like The Color Purple, at some point people are going to try to milk that as much as they can.
of
And
course, of
that's
course.
what Hollywood does, right? And what was so interesting to me, and we could get into this, is that people are like, why remake The Color Purple? And when the trailers came up, when I was in The Color Purple, I saw an ad for a new Godzilla movie. Now, there's 5011 Godzilla movies. Ain't nobody be like, why they remaking Godzilla? Do we need 50 more Godzillas? But are they going to be? Huh?
Godzilla, Planet of the Apes,
Planet of the Apes, Willy Wonka. There's literally
Star Wars, Star
Hey,
Trek.
y'all done gone too far. You done gone too far, Black people. Y'all gotta stop somewhere.
King
Well,
Kong.
let me start here. Let me start here. We have already jumped in. I'm sure you can see that. Good afternoon, everyone. I see my sister Alethea. I see Lynn. Hey, New Year. Happy 2024 for everybody. We are going to jump into this conversation. So I don't even need to introduce people. I think we could just go. I want to start out. I want to start this conversation out just to be clear. Because we're talking kind of a combination. So we know we've got the new Color Purple, the movie that came out. So it got my purple nails, nothing else purple. But we are also going to be talking about the book, and we can talk about the original movie. So I want to kind of just, and thinking about Alice Walker and her work overall, I think it's important for us to discuss here. So I really want us to just kind of jump into the conversation. And just for a point of reference, has everybody read the book? Even if it's a long time ago? I read it a long time ago. Okay, good. Okay, so we're all on the same page. And other than Corrie, I know Corrie saw the play. I didn't see the play. Did anybody else see the play?
I've seen the play.
Okay, so Corrie, you're gonna have to hold us down in terms of the play. And then I see Lynn. I guess Lynn, did you read the book or you saw the play, or you did both? Because I saw Lynn answer the question also. So my question for you, Corrie, just your first impressions when you look at the new movie. I know when we saw it on Christmas Day. What are your first impressions of the movie?
So, first impressions, I thought it was great, but partly because, I've seen the play. I loved the music, right? And also it was because, I'll say this. I mean, The Color Purple, the book, the novel, came out in 1982, right? The first movie came out in 1985. The Broadway play came out in I think it's like 2006. So you're talking about, generations that I've lived with this story in different iterations. And I understood that this movie was going to be a companion piece, right? Not a remake. And I think that I've stopped calling it a remake, but it's a companion piece for where we are now, right? And it had to be different. It had to be more colorful. I think that it had to be more fantastical because that's the place where we are. In 1982, in the Reagan era, right? They were, not to say that things aren't dire now, but I felt like they were dealing with a sort of a different reality. And I do think that, so my initial reaction was, I am so glad that a new generation of people who may not read the book, and, that's what I deal with as a literature professor. I know most of the people are not only are they not going to read the book, they don't want to read the book, right? That's not their entry point. And so for them to have a new way, almost 20 years after the Broadway version that, starred in different points, Fantasia and Cynthia Erivo, and I think LaChance, I don't think she has a last name, but she's like a great Broadway singer. To start all these people, and Daniel Brooks, who was on the Broadway production, to have a even younger version of people who probably are not going to read the book, but they have a way of coming in that has these great songs about women's empowerment and sisterhood and just love and God, right? And we can talk about that later, but this book is essentially a love letter to God, right? It's a conversation with God about, understanding the way the world works. So I thought that visually it was beautiful. Like I said, I wanted to sing the songs because I was like, oh, I'm here, or hell no. When they got that hell no, I was like, the audience was like, hell no, the man wants to put his hand, he want to raise his hand. What you say? You say hell no, right? All of that I got to relive in a different iteration, right? So I think it goes along with the book. Of course, I think the book, stands on its own. But even when the first Color Purple came out, most people hadn't read the book either. So, yeah.
I didn't realize it even until afterwards. I read the book years later and realized that it was a book. I mean, I was 13 at the time when it came.
Yeah.
So it was a different experience. Anybody else want to kind of give a commentary on their first impressions of the new movie?
Well, I haven't seen the new movie. When I heard it was going to be a movie, I was like, okay, I don't want to be re-traumatized. I don't think I'm going to go see this. And then as more publicity and promotions began to come out, it was billed as a musical. I'm like, well, how are you going to make a musical out of misery? So my understanding is that it's not as miserable. Basically a musical is uplifting. And I began to think, okay, thank goodness that you should not be re-traumatized, and it's more uplifting. I still haven't seen it because I ain't going outside. My bootlegometer didn't have it downloaded, so I wasn't able to watch it before today. But I'm just feeling relieved that it does not appear to be as traumatic. And I say appear to be because when I first saw the movie, I what do you call it? I angry watched it because the Hollywood NAACP was picketing. So here in LA, I can't speak for everyone, but I mostly remember the uproar around this movie and how so many people were like, it makes black men look horrific. This is a horrific film. And I went to go see it with a couple of people. And I don't remember if it was before we went into the theater or as we came out, but there were people outside arguing. And I'll never forget, there was this one woman almost in tears who was arguing with the protesters. This movie is real life. This movie is my life. And I don't give a damn if you think black men look bad. That's what black men do. It just brought out the emotions. And like I said, I'm angry. Not only was I angry watching, do you know how many years it took me to forgive Danny Glover? Because I would hear people talk about, well, Danny Glover, this progressive history, this activist I was like, Well, first of all, he ain't had to take that role, and second, he ain't had to play that role that good. I was young at the time, so I've eventually forgiven Danny Glover. But that's how
Yeah.
those were my impressions when I saw the film the first time. I hate watched it, and you can't hate watch. And I'm talking about, you can make an analysis, you can make a critique, but having formed the opinion before you watch it, as you watch it, can't do that.
Yeah,
Can't do it.
yeah.
Can't.
Danny
I
Glover's the
love
and I
Danny
love you
Glover. I love I
Huh?
love Danny Glover.
Danny Glover
Pardon?
is he the dude. He all right with me.
Yeah,
I forget.
yeah.
I forget
I
myself.
know
feel like
he.
his grandmother.
Yeah,
He was saying that his grandmother was upset. His 90-something-year-old grandmother, when he first came and saw her after she saw the movie, she was like, "I
Mhm.
raised him better than that." And he said for like the next 5 years, he had to go in the house with a switch because she was so angry.
Good.
Go ahead.
Good.
I think a lot of people really, really, because he played that role. All the actors, not just Danny Glover, but I think
Mhm.
in the original Color Purple, everyone really played their part, and we were really surprised, at the range of Oprah. So there was a lot of good acting in the film. Um, from my perception, in 1985, I was Antoinette, and so I wasn't looking at none of that business. So I did not see The Color Purple until years later when I was at the Atlanta University Center, and I
Mhm.
took a English class, and we were talking about that, and then they came up with The Color Purple, right? So my reaction to it was much older, because when I was looking at The Color Purple, and I looked it up a couple of days ago, I was like, dang, this came out in 85. Where was it? That totally just like skipped my radar. Antoinette wasn't looking at any of that black stuff, right? So when I looked at it, I was introduced to the book. I was introduced to it, Alice Walker and the different people. So I looked at it from a more critical view, right? Now, granted, some people still had the thing about it was still the conversation about demonizing black men, you know. Then because when I watched it, it was in the 90s, there was some uncomfortability between the relationship with Shug and Celie. So, some people did talk about that aspect of it. But overall, my relationship with the movie was that it was a beautiful movie about a woman overcoming her struggles. That's the thing that I focused on. All the other back talk, I was like, okay, yeah, that's in the movie. But the main thing is how she overcame all of her struggles. She never lost her faith, right? She was reunited with the family, because I'm very family oriented. So I thought that that was also the crux of the story. And it was very beautiful. And I tell people that The Color Purple is such a part of my life with my friends. Not a week will not go by that somebody's not quoting some
Totally.
part of that movie at some
Mhm.
point. And a favorite line is like when somebody come up, people will say, "Hopper, who that woman?" People will always for that whole thing, till you do right by me. I hear it at least once a week. I'm not joking.
And of
So
course there's the all my life I had to
Had to
oh
fight.
Lord, oh
I had
Lord,
to fight
I
my
like that.
my
Some of
brother.
them uncles. I never saw. So my thing was, yeah, that comes out. So when I heard that they were making a movie that was a musical, I
Mhm.
was like offended, right? Because The Color Purple had become something sacred and untouchable in my mind, right?
Mhm.
Because of my relationship with it. So I was very resistant to going to see it. And especially when someone who shall remain nameless said that they wanted to leave after the first 5 minutes of it, I was like, no, I know I ain't gonna go see that movie. But one of my sister's friends was in town, and she was like, okay, we saw The Color Purple around the same time. Let's go see it for my birthday. And after the first 5 minutes, I was like, oh my God, I love this film. I need to bring my daughters to see this film. I need
Mm,
to bring my mom back to see this film. I need to bring everyone back to see it because, true, they still told the story and they told it from what we needed to hear this day. And it was interesting because we had one of my girlfriend's mom, and then another girlfriend had her daughter, who this was her first introduction to Color Purple. And my friend's mom read the book, saw the movie when it came out in 1985, saw the play, and then saw the movie. So the conversations that we had afterwards, the intergenerational conversations was very interesting.
mm, mm.
So that's so interesting. I'm wondering, other folks that actually did see the new movie, the new adaptation, what were your thoughts? So put those in the chat. I see Njamile said the color purple too is so it's not just your friends.
Kendrick Lamar quotes The Color Purple.
Oh, the Kendrick Lamar quotes the color purple too. Yeah, I do. I love It's Gonna Rain on Your Head. So, or did I ever ask you for anything?
I say that every time it rains. I say it every time it rains.
You was rotten kids. You were.
And that's why, like I said, what kills me is like literally the sound bites from the movie that people love the most are direct quotes from the book, right? That all my life I had to fight, right? Like literally, and so this is like that till you do right by me, everything you touch go like, and so I think it's so great that little like when she directs it, but this kind of notion that when Mr. gets cursed, he gets cursed. Like you felt that in the book. You felt like so each iteration, and I feel like that's one of the things that it didn't have to be the same. And I guess that's one of the things that I'm really excited about when we think about creativity and telling stories again. Like resist because you cannot make something that feels the same as that same first Color Purple. But I think by seeing the play that like that movie was so much about music. If you think about why it could be a musical, because it wasn't about, and they didn't show Celie's trauma in a certain way or Suge's trauma. Because you realize in the book, Suge and Mr. have 3 kids together, right? Like it's not like, it's not as yeah, they do. So it's not like they're just, huh?
Are those his children? And never said whose
No,
children.
those are not his children. Her children are sent away because she's so loose. And this is what I did want them to go more into this because, like I said, it's about music, right? Suge is thrown out of her father's church because she wants to sing the blues. And one of the things that I feel like was so, because Alice Walker said a lot of what she wrote was about her own family, right? Growing up in Georgia in this very strict, difficult position where very religious country kind of people, this was her family. Like her grandfather had, was married to her grandmother, but also had this woman who was kind of like it, like whatever you want to call it, a throuple or whatever. Like she saw these things, right? Like, and she wanted to be able to talk about it. And then she wanted to wrestle with really religion, right? This religion that she was taught. There's a part in there I wish Njamile and Estee were here because to talk about, Spelman being this where Alice Walker went before she left, being this biblical college where they're supposed to go and learn about all of these, how to act like a good Christian woman. It was this Bible seminary. And to confront this idea at Spelman, and this is also why she ends up making pants. Alice Walker talks about how she was written up, I think, like, because you could only wear pants one day a week. I think it was like on Saturday in the afternoon, but she wanted to wear pants at another time. And she was like, what? Just wearing pants got to do with God? Like, what? If I wear pants, that mean I don't love God? Like, how that work? If somebody rapes me, that means I don't love God. Like I'm the victim, so that means that God don't love me. I don't love God. outside. And I think that sort of growing up in that very religious background, she had all these questions and and about things she saw in her own family. And to get back to the music, this kind of idea, like saying like you wear pants, you loose, somebody rape you, it's your fault, you loose, right? Like you listen to blues music, you're loose, but blues music is the foundation of like all gospel music. And I think one of the things that was really interesting about Shug in the book, especially, is she loved God, right? She saw God in nature. She's like, you look out this field, you see the purple, you know there's a God, right? And she's like, when I sing these songs that I grew up on, I feel God is all over this. And so in the 85, when she has that big scene where she's walking into church, I kind of did miss that because it was a way of bringing those two musical to really get back to all this time she'd been singing the blues. She really been singing about God. Now, she loves sex. She loves sex in the book. We can talk about the difference between that and the real. So she definitely did. But she was like, God created all of this. So you can't tell me that God don't love me. That God don't love Celie. That God don't love, whatever. She was like, that's not God. That's man. God didn't take your children, Celie. That's man that took your children. And it comes back to all of these things that are important to Black culture that I think she was struggling with when she left Spelman, because she was like, and she left Georgia because she was like, these people tried to be all Christian and blah, 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 but I love music. I love pants. I love other women. I love all this other kind of stuff. And people are trying to tell me if I do that, I don't love God. And I know that's not true, right? I don't know. I just feel like there's so much in it. And that's different in this one, that reminds us that it's about this joy and this understanding about loving the world and not putting people out because they don't fit in a certain thing. Yeah.
And that's what I kind of love. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just saying that one of the things that I really, really loved about this movie is that as a Southerner, I felt the Southernness in
Oh,
this
yeah.
movie. It was like so many things that I can connect to that is a part of my culture that was really, it was so tangible for me. And like I said, I wish Jamila was here so she could talk on it a little bit more, but you can talk on it too, Corrie, being a Southerner, because there's this whole thing, respectability politics, right? We can bring Brittany Cooper into this conversation because there's a way as a woman you have to behave, right? And so I have women, and I have women in my family that told that respectability politics thing. I'm going to be a church going woman. I'm going to wear a skirt.
Right.
I'm going to, serve on the Ursha board. I'm going to do all these things.
Yeah, right.
But then I had great aunts that pushed back against that, much in the way that Sophia did, much in the way that Shug did. And I had, I always like to tell the story. I had an aunt, and she would tell you up front, she was like, oh, yeah, I'm going to see one of my men's. And as a child, I was like, men is already cool. So you saying men's, like, what? She was like, don't let somebody tell you to be a woman when you, and this is what she was telling me when I was like 6 or 7, right? Don't let nobody show you or tell you how to be a woman. You be it in the way that fits you.
Correct.
And she was like, I know people talk about me, but she sung in the church. She was a Shug type of character, right? And so she was like, I'm gonna do me because God loves me and God forgives me. So you have to find your own path. Don't let. And she telling this to me at 6. So yeah,
That's the sister your mom and them didn't want you to be around too long.
Correct. She was the one. They be like, oh,
they let me hang around her. They let me hang around.
I think that comes in different ways because I'm not a Southerner, so I'm not going to try to. And that was one of the things that I actually did want to ask is like, does the film, does the book, does the movie, the play, do they actually portray Southern Black life? And so I think I'm getting the answer. One of the things that I've always loved and I've respected, I have had this experience multiple times with Southern Black women that hold kind of this dual space of respectability. At the same time, excuse me, I've seen them. I've been to a party with a Southern Black woman. I was like, wait, that's your man and that's your first husband and that's your second husband and they all in the same room or they sitting between like, oh, that's the current one and that's the, oh, okay, and they be like, all right. And I always
And that's what I'm saying. It's like you have to, if nothing else you get from The Color Purple, it is like you define God and the universe for yourself. And that for a lot of Black men is dangerous, right? Like you're not gonna go fit in this paradigm. You gonna decide you can have men on the side. I told you to wear a skirt, but you gonna wear pants. I told you gotta be quiet. You gotta mind, as Harpo said. Why won't Sophia mind me?
Mind. Why won't she do what I say?
Yeah.
Cause Harpo, she don't have to, right? Like it's like the whole.
Is she a grown woman? I'm looking at, and Jamila put a comment on here. I saw, hey Don, Happy New Year. I see your comment too. She said that Evelyn Brooks Higginbottom originated that term respectability politics. And I think we all have experienced that somewhere in our community. Yeah. And then Brittany Cooper was talking about or questioning, like pushing beyond that. And I think we're at a complex situation right now because we're at this crossroads. So you got lots of young folks that are like, no, like we need to stop, engaging in that respectability politics. And like I said, I've seen people that like are on the margins. Like some things are very respectable about, but then when it comes to their men's, they just gonna be themselves. And I think go ahead.
It's interesting about the dress thing because, with the women who are in college, you hear that a lot. Like, you can't, it's respectability politics. If I want to wear a crop top, that's what I'm about to do. But I'll say this, that a lot of things are made like we're trying to co-opt or repeat whiteness in respectability politics. When you realize for a lot of Black women, what is revolutionary, again, is to not give people access to your body, right? To not put it out there. You weren't able to decide whether or not you're going to be naked before, right? Excuse me. But now you can. So respectability doesn't just mean letting everything hang out. It can literally mean you get the right to cover yourself and keep things for yourself. Keep things like you don't have to put things out there. And so I feel like we get into traps thinking that it looks one way, that it means that you wear pants. But if you want to wear a skirt, if that is the way that you are made, it's not respectability politics to wear a skirt. It is just your decision that is what you're going to do. That you might like African outfits that don't have pants, and that's what you're going to wear, right? And we need to stop automatically thinking, right, unless you are in the way that other people want you to be, including other women, that means that you're following respectability politics. Because Ife, I'll just say, I know you like to dress. That there's some people who like, oh, well, she's so formal. Well, she just wear a t-shirt and some shorts. Like, why she got to dress up? Black people like to dress up, right? Like, and so that doesn't mean, and I think about like the civil rights activists and whatever, who would be suited and booted with a little purse and like a little like a shawl, they going all marching
and being spit on,
and being spit up. But if that's what if they say, well, this makes me feel better, like you ain't gonna make me feel like somebody under your boot, somebody less than, so I'm gonna dress up for everything. If they're not so much anymore, but that's an HBCU thing. People dress up to go to class, right? If that's what you want to do, what a power it is to be able to claim, to adorn yourself in the way that you want to present yourself in the way you want to the world. So I think that there is a larger question about that. And what The Color Purple does is just start to ask, because even when it comes at first, Shug in the book is the one who suggests Celie makes pants, right? And she was like, "Oh, Mister won't let me wear no pants. Like, why I'm gonna make pants for? What? I don't even want to wear no pants. That don't seem appropriate." Because Celie is very religious in the book, right? And she started makes pants for women and men. And then when she started, like Sophia, of course, asked her for some pants, like one purple leg, one red leg. She was in there some pants and leg all kind of crazy. Right, this is in the book. She comes back and was like, and Sophia for her, and I feel like that's one thing that's not in either movie is the friendship between Celie and Sophia, and how Celie, like she says in the movie, both movies, like well, did she say in the first movie, I'm jealous of you. That's why I told Mister to beat you, right?
No, she said it in the second one. She didn't say it in the first one.
Okay, I couldn't remember. She says it in the book. In a lot of ways, which is interesting, this second musical is more like the book than either the play or the first movie, right? Because I think they give elements in there that are, it's more fantastical. But when I think that the redemption arc with Mr., and we could talk about that in Men, that's more like the book. The friendship between Celie and Sophia, it was more like the book. It kind of shows how she goes visits her all the time, was, making sure not only does she make her wedding dress, but like literally she is like, she forgives her for telling Harpo to beat her. And then they form this amazing friendship. But more than anything else, like beyond Suge, where she has not only a friendship, but a romantic relationship. Sophia, because Nettie is gone, Sophia is her example of sisterhood. Right. And Sophia doesn't, and this is one of the things that's really key. When he says she won't mind me, he gets mad because Sophia wants to, like a man, she on the roof, building the house. Harpo cooks and cleans in the book all the time. He's the one, and then Mr. tried to make him feel like, why you in here like a woman? Well, she out there in the field and on the roof. He's like, well, she bigger than me. That's what he says in the book. Not only she bigger than me, she better at it, right?
Also, in the book, Mr. is the first one to say, "Have you hit? How come you don't hit her?"
Yeah, Mr. is the first one, but Celie also says it later on. Yeah,
Sophia is disappointed. She expects that of Mr.
Right.
Celie done echo it. That disappoints.
Right. It disappoints her, but they come back to being friends, though. Yeah.
I want to say something here, and I want to see if we can go to this kind of next idea. Like, because as we're talking, what I realize is the significance of Alice Walker's work. Regardless of what you think of Alice Walker as a person, Alice Walker as a author, as a creator, as a thought leader, is significant. I mean, she's impacted all of our lives. And I want us, Thandi, I want you to read something. I know you got something to read. I want you to read that in a second. But I want us to talk just from our specific fields and why is Alice Walker's work important, number one. And I'm going to start with you, Thandi. And then number two, I want to talk about how you use Alice Walker's work in your personal life, but then also professionally, how have you tapped into what Alice Walker has done? And I want to go to Thandi because we are going to be covering her work.
I need you to speak up, sis. Speak up.
I didn't hear them.
I need you
Corrie,
to speak up.
Okay.
Okay. What were you saying?
I was saying I'm gonna come to you in just a second because I want you to read something. So, and we're gonna be doing your work in a couple of months. We're gonna you got a new book and you got another one coming out, but you got a book that just dropped not too long ago. It's called Some of Us Are Brave: Interviews and Conversations with Sisters on Life, Art, and Struggle. And I am so excited about that book. And so we're definitely gonna we're going to dive into that book in a few months. And one of the things that I wanted you to do is to give us a little excerpt from the book, because I know that one of the sisters interviewed for the book actually wrote about Alice Walker. So I wonder if you can share that with us as we get ready to have this conversation.
Unshameless plug. Where is it at? Can you see it? Unshameless plug. I can't even get the book up.
We can't see it. Hey, Ron, I see you over there, sis. Happy New Year.
Okay, the book is called Some of Us Are Brave. You just mentioned it. And one of the transcripts in the book is of Evelyn C. White talking about the process of writing a biography of Alice Walker. And I thought this was an interesting excerpt that I wanted to share. So what year was this? This was back in 2005. She was speaking in Oakland, California at the Oakland Library. And she says, to set the stage, basically, Alice, this won't surprise any of you who are aware of Alice. Alice wasn't necessarily interested in Hollywood or a Hollywood movie. She was very interested in having her mother have some understanding of the color purple and what it was about. Alice's mother had had a stroke. Alice is the youngest of 8 children born in very impoverished circumstances in rural Georgia. Her mother, Minnie Lou Walker, had a stroke shortly after The Color Purple was published and was never able to read more than a few pages of the book. Alice said to me and others that her primary interest in a film was to give her mother an opportunity to understand the story of The Color Purple, which is in part based on Alice's paternal grandparents and part of her maternal grandparents and forebears also. She wanted her mother to understand this story. Her mother, who had never been able to read the novel, that is the main reason that she agreed to the film. It wasn't because Steven Spielberg and Quincy Jones came knocking, though in the absence of Quincy Jones, it is pretty clear that the movie probably never would have been made. It was because Quincy Jones was involved and Alice greatly respected the music that he had done for Roots, the television series, that she agreed to the film. But the primary reason was so her mother could understand the story. And another expert, Alice later wrote of her life beyond the shimmer of the Pulitzer Prize. There was a strong green cord connecting me to this great, simple seeming, but complicated woman who was herself rooted in the earth. I felt this cord weakening, becoming a thread. There was not a day that I did not feel the emptiness left by my mother's absence, particularly as she gradually lost the ability to talk beyond a slurred reading, which, true to her spirit, she slurred cheerfully. Alice hoped the movie would help her mother recapture memories, reimagine on the palette of art. Gotta get better. On the palette of art of her life as a young black woman in Putnam County, which is the rural area where Alice grew up in Georgia. Although Mr. Walker had passed on, Alex, Alice envisioned a film that would likewise ennoble his spirit, which she put forth with poignant touches in the character Harpo. You remember the character Harpo in the book, or the movie is based on, in part, on Alice's father, Willie Lee Walker, who died in 1973. And then let's see, I think the last part I wanted to read. While sympathetic to the frustration of the cast and crew jumping around, Alice said she considered the Academy snub of The Color Purple a blessing that preserved the purity of intention with which the film was made. I think The Color Purple had like 11 nominations, didn't win a thing. The way she saw it, everyone from Spielberg to the impish black child in the movie who warned Harpo, it's going to rain on your head. Remember that little boy who said that? Alice thought that everyone deserved more than an Oscar for their loving radiance as a healing balm for our communities and the world. This is a quote from Alice. Because we had so many nominations, I thought someone on the jury understood the impetus of the movie, which was love, Alice explained. But when I realized that they had understanding but no courage, I lost interest in winning. We were freed from the corruption that prizes often bring, but the experience brought other benefits. Ever the curious artist, Alice said she was grateful for the adventure of attending the Academy Awards show, the naysayers protesting the movie. The color purple destroys the color black, read a placard, only added to the stockpile of fabric for her future writing. And lastly, I want you all to be thinking about this. This is Evelyn White. I want you all to be thinking about this if you're watching the Oscars in the next couple of weeks. It was a lot less sophisticated up close than it appears on television, said Alice. With people outside on bleachers yelling and screaming, it was like entering a high school gym. I had never crossed the picket line before. I never thought that I would, but I wasn't going to let my people, either in the movie or the book, go into such hostile territory alone. My characters had gotten me from New York to San Francisco. Now, really, how could I leave them amidst bleacher seats in Beverly Hills? So that's Evelyn White talking about Alice Walker's remembrances of the time around surrounding The Color Purple when she wrote her autobiography. I think it's called Alice a Life or something to that effect. Came out either in 95 or 2000.
Wow. Thank you for sharing that. I didn't know
Mm,
any of that. That was really
yeah,
helpful.
yeah. It's
Yeah.
Kenneth show. It's still not showing. Okay. Still can't show
But
my
that's
book.
okay because what I did is I put the link in there. So if you're
Mhm.
interested, definitely, support our sister Thandi. So I put the link to the book right in the chat. So you can click on that link and go right to buying the book.
So it talks about that experience gave her fodder for her future writings. And Alice is one of those people who's so prolific. It's like, Alice, Toni Morrison, my sister, whose name Octavia Butler. It's like I almost can't keep up with all these books. I got lists of books I need to read. I'm behind. I can't get to them all. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why
How
you have
how do you
audio
think
books.
how has Alice Walker's work impacted you in your life
Hmm.
or in your work as an author?
Well, to be honest, I can't really talk about a direct impact or a direct line. I'm sure she's there. Um, I noticed I had to go back to reread or recheck in with The Color Purple. At the end of the book, she says something about thank you for coming. At the end of Color Purple, thank you for coming. And it says, I think Alice Walker, author and medium. The idea of characters coming and speaking to you so
Mm-hmm.
that you can tell their story. Alice is not the first to experience that or to say that or speak about it. So that's definitely a part of my work. That's definitely a part of the tradition. But just in reflecting on that, of course, these characters spoke to her. And by characters, I mean these spirits spoke to her and helped her write this book. Most writers will tell you that. I just find it interesting, though, again, going back to my memory of how many people decried the film. And I hadn't read the book prior to the film, I read the book after. It was very traumatic. It was very traumatic. But
And
fortunately, Alice has persevered and continues
and
to
I mean
write.
I'll go really quickly from my perspective, just in the work that I've done. The impact of Alice Walker is just a very direct and significant impact to me. And I think you all have heard me say this already. It's The Color Purple is the only movie that I can ever remember seeing with my mother. I have
Hmm.
no memory. Now, I may have seen other ones. I have no memory of ever seeing anything else.
Hmm.
And I don't have memory of the protest. Obviously, I saw it in Atlanta. I mean, Atlanta. I wasn't in Atlanta. I was in Los Angeles at the time.
Hmm.
And I was only 13. So I don't remember any protests. I didn't have any kind of idea of anything going on politically or socially at the time. I just
Hmm.
know my mother took me, and I don't remember us talking about it. I remember us sitting there and watching the movie. And I remember being distinctly uncomfortable at the beginning with the scene where it's clear that she's been raped by her and with who she thinks is her father.
Hmm.
Um, and then and then with my own daughter, when obviously she had seen the movie, and then I told her, I was like, Alice Walker, it comes from a book. Alice Walker wrote a book, and my daughters are voracious readers, and so then she went and read the book, and she's coming back and asking me questions because I had already read it, and so then that opened a dialogue. So when the film came out, it was like, yes, gotta go see it on Christmas Day. So I see like this transgenerational impact of Alice
Hmm.
Walker's work, just in terms of my personal life. And I think that's what, Corrie, you were saying earlier, is that you can see across generations. You know something is significant when you have quotes from a movie, when multiple people across generations in your family can have a conversation and feel that they're impacted. Now, in terms of the new adaptation, it wasn't my favorite. The only thing I liked was Suge's entrance. Now I love it because they're flashy. So I'm a flashy chick. So I
Oh,
love
sure.
that.
Oh,
Yeah,
sure.
like that pink can.
It's not respectability. It's a straight up Oshun thing. I've been like this all my life. So
But
anything that's flashy. Go ahead.
well,
What'd you say,
I
Tony?
was gonna, so it's like, for colored girls and the color purple, there is such this intergenerational continuum of passing out the book, of seeing a play or a movie together with the women in your family. One of you, I forget, sorry, was talking about how sacred this work is. And I just I just really wish that more of the popular discourse that I come across, you have to filter garbage in, garbage out, but a lot of what I see in social media, because I have to pay attention as a journalist, we get stuck on, well, this is bashing black men, or this is blah. And I'm like, but it resonates with too many black women. There has to be something there for this many black women across generations, for this to resonate with them. And what happens a lot of the time is that we ignore what black women are saying, and we focus more on, oh, this is what this film means to black men. It's a black woman's story. Can we talk about the fact that this is a black woman's story? Not that she's praising black men, not that she's condemning black men. Can we just start with, this is a black woman's story, and go from there? We don't usually go from there a lot. And that's one of the
And can,
things that bothers me.
and can we be upset about that, Corrie? And well, I know Nozibele. I see you want to go next, Nozibele, and then Corrie, and then I want to talk about this idea of Celie being a queer character, and Alice Walker like doing that in 1982. So, but let's before we go there, go ahead, Nozibele.
Um, Alice Walker, yeah. I would say that Alice Walker was responsible for pushing me over the edge, right? And I say that as being a Southern Black woman, there were certain things that I was socialized to believe, certain things that I grew up, the whole pants thing I understand, right? Because in the Bible, it says women shouldn't wear pants. I don't know where, but it's supposed to be in there somewhere. So that's a whole big thing about you expressing who is a woman and who is a man. So after The Color Purple, I read Possessing the Secret of Joy,
Mm-hmm.
right? That book in and of itself really, whereas at first I was like, oh, how am I pushing back? Because, it's easy to have conversations about being an oppressed Black person, right? We could talk about racism with our brothers all day long and they get it. We're, unified in the struggle to throw off the oppressors on our back because of race. But Alice Walker helped me to realize that, because I was struggling with feminism, right? So
Mm-hmm.
Alice Walker helped me to understand that I can be, a womanist, that I can speak up for the things that impact women. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm anti male. It doesn't mean that I hate men. It doesn't mean that I hate children. It's just that I'm affirming my womanhood and stand pretty much what you all were talking about, standing up as a woman to say, these are the things that Black women face. These are some of the issues. And these are some of the things that we're going to have to talk about. And we could talk about it with other African women. I would love to bring African men in on the conversation and other people too. But if they're not coming along with me, then it doesn't matter. right?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
that's how Alice Walker has impacted my life, because I do consider myself a womanist. I do consider myself as having that type particular outlook.
And in addition to the possessing the secret of joy, there's also In Search of Our Mother's Gardens, where because Alice is in terms of her impact. I could be wrong, but I feel like I got to watch these generalizations that we put out here. I won't say she's single-handedly, but she is responsible, majorly responsible for the resurgence of interest in Zora Neale Hurston.
Yeah.
That was
Oh
Alice.
yeah, I think you
There
can
were
I
say
have to,
other,
I have to
single-handedly.
give her credit for
there were
that.
other people involved. There's always other
Yeah, I
people
think
involved. But yeah,
yeah,
but
and I think
absolutely.
you could say that. And again, if we talk about impact in our lives, I think that as a African American woman anthropologist, Zora Neale Hurston is huge. And I think
Mhm.
not only does she impact African American women, but there's this whole thing in the academy about
Mhm.
Black feminist anthropology. And Zora Neale Hurston was like one of the vanguard in that
Mhm.
regards, right? So because of Zora Neale Hurston and Catherine Dunham, people are understanding that there are different ways that you can approach anthropology. There are different methods that you can use that doesn't discount it. So they're moving away from the masculineness and the white male perspective to bring more
Mhm.
of that in. And so a lot of times when they talk about those things, they talk about Zora Neale Hurston, to the point that Ntozake Shange's daughter is an anthropologist, and she wrote this whole thing about decolonizing. Not She didn't invent the whole thing about decolonizing anthropology, but she
Mhm.
talked about abolitionist anthropology. That
Mhm.
term she did invent. And that's the way of bringing more African centered ideas and politics and world sense into how we look at anthropology and the methods that we use. So it's called
Mhm.
abolitionist anthropology.
Mhm. I
And
see.
I want to acknowledge that we're at 1 o'clock. Corrie, I do want to get you to comment too from your perspective as a literature professor, and specifically. And I don't want us to end just like necessarily right here, because I do think I want to give some time for the fact that Celie is a queer character, and again, the book in 1982, and we know that queer characters have existed long before then. At the same
Mhm.
time, I do think that that is something that's significant. So I wonder if you can speak to that a little bit. Because, yeah, I mean, the politics of that at that time was very different than presenting Celie today as a character.
Mhm.
Well, so I'll do both because I probably gotta go and I'm outside and I'm sorry I'm on this busy street. Okay,
Mhm.
so two things. In Search of Our Mother's Gardens, and everybody said, I came to Alice Walker through Zora Neale Hurston, right? And then anytime, and so you're right, Tandy, single handedly, because anytime you start to get into research, it's going to lead you back to an article, that Alice Walker wrote about going down to Florida, finding this unmarked grave, putting a marker on it. So
Mhm.
here lies, right, this genius, of the South, all this other kind of stuff. And immediately you were talking about her books coming back, not like all her books, right? Their eyes, but everything else, her works of anthropology. I think that the reason it has also been center, and then so now we have Barracoon that just came out a couple years ago, and people are still releasing like folklore that she had, all this other kind of stuff. And I think that that is because of Alice Walker and the idea that you could have a black woman who can chronicle accurately the
Mhm.
life of the South, even if it's fiction, right? Even if it's quoted lies, as Zora Neale Hurston used to say,
Mhm.
even if it's that. Um, so I can't say enough about In Search of Our Mother's Gardens for women who are interested in Black literature, just bar none, right? But
Mhm.
beyond that, Alice Walker's a poet. One of my favorites is The Horses Make the Landscape Look More Beautiful. She's written about other Black women and given them their flowers. I'm thinking of Revolutionary Petunias and other poems. We think about, too, not only do we have Possessing the Secrets of Joy in the Temple of My Familiar, along with Color Purple. One of my favorite books is Meridian, which is about the civil rights movement. It features a single character, Meridian, who, like, long after all the activists are gone, she's still in Mississippi trying to fight the fight, right? And I think a lot about Alice Walker, who herself was an activist with her white husband, lawyer husband, who went down to Mississippi to fight against injustice, right? I feel like it is a lot. It is like I said, I don't feel like people teach it enough, but when we're sort of talking about what happens to people who stay in this long struggle, right? My students always say that too. Like, one of the things I asked Angela Davis, well, how do you not get tired? I was like, what makes you think she's not tired, right? Like, what makes you think anybody wasn't tired and beat down and all of this? But what you're doing is so much larger that you can't give up. Of course she's tired. I mean, she's had cancer, like she's had death threats. She was in jail, right? Like there's all this other kind of stuff. And so Meridian, I can't say enough about. I hope more people read that. So all that to say, about queer characters in literature, I feel like, again, and I think that this is also her own gender identity. I mean, the fact that the way that she wants to write about freedom, for her, it also meant loving people in ways that weren't sanctioned by the church, but existed, right? Like we know that, and when I think about the founders of Spelman too, and she kind of alludes to that in the novel, these two women who kind of lived together. Like you want to say they started this great women's institution, but you don't want to talk about them being in what they call a quote unquote Boston marriage, which means basically they were a couple. You just act like they're two single women, and because they were starting this Bible college, like they couldn't have been in a relationship, but they were, right? And I feel like there is part of that just really getting back to telling these narratives. Even these country, unlearned, look like Christian, beat down women can have love lives that look differently. And for a long time, she talks about, Celie, the character Celie, talks about in the book, she doesn't hate men, but she's like, I am uninterested in them. Like, there's nothing I've ever gotten from a man but pain. And my world is women. My sister's the only one who loved me. And she remembers her mother and lying down. And she was like, well, when I lie with Suge, it's like that comfort that I feel when she's got her back to me and I got her arms around me, but it's excitement too, right? Like it's that too. People keep on talking to me about men, but she's like, I never felt that. But she was like, I was clear that the only real love I was going to get in my life, both platonically, familially, and otherwise, was with women. Mm-hmm. And for Alice Walker, that was also part of womanism, right? It was not only this kind of idea that to be a womanist meant that you loved women in all sorts of ways. And I feel like it is, that's why I kind of feel like, I don't know how people don't know that it was a queer story. And it wasn't unusual, right? Like there was a lot of, like I keep on saying during the Harlem Renaissance, and sort of also to circle back to Georgia. So I feel like this is the most Georgia book and literally the movie does a good job of doing that, right? Even the big granddaddy tree that they end up around at the end is in Savannah. They circle around it. That's so located. The beach on Jekyll Island, that's both Africa and where they are at the beginning. the theater that they go to that's in Macon, the part that's in Atlanta. Like all these little things that you see, it is located in the same way that Alice Walker kind of learned, because she had love for her home, but such contempt. She thought it was the most beautiful place. You know, talk about the landscapes and the field of purple flowers and the trees and the grass. But because of the way that people did not honor what I would say is God, which meant you can love everything, including women loving women. You can love things in a different way. You can talk to the trees. You can do all of this. She saw that as all a part of being natural, right? Being able to tell this story. And I feel like that, and like I said, it goes in a long line of what I would call women's sexual self-discovery, which you see in for colored girls, for like all of it. But I think that in Alice Walker in the 80s, it was a particular, um, it was a part, like if you read The Temple of My Familiar, she has a character that literally comes back through generations. And sometimes the character's a man, sometimes it's a woman, sometimes it's like this fluidity of things. And I think it goes back to this kind of idea. We can't sort of have these categories and think of things in certain ways and that is to limit God. So it is very much a queer story. I feel like I did like the fact that it was more of a love story here, even though they kind of copped out and made it a dream she was having. But they did dance and do all this other kind of stuff, but which was more than the kiss in the original film. So I did like that. But I mean, it was an epic love story because eventually through Suge, you know, Celie learns, you know, that I'm here song, right? I'm beautiful. God loves me, right? Like, and I'm here, right?
Mhm.
And she finds that through Suge, I think, and Sophia, right? Who's just a platonic friend in a lot of different ways, right? So.
I do know we're at 109. I want to see if we have like last comments, particularly about just any part of just this legacy that Alice Walker has left us. I didn't. I love the fact, Tandi, that you pointed out at the end that she describes herself as a medium. I did not know that because I do
Mhm.
really think that she channeled this.
Yes,
Even the
absolutely.
day before I saw the new movie, so Christmas Eve, I stayed up till like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning rewatching the original, which is a mistake. I don't think you do that because then you're like, look at it's because it's
Yeah.
not they're not the same. So that was a mistake. But I realized so I'm a teenager and I'm sitting there with my mother and I'm watching history
Mhm.
because I'm watching Danny Glover and Oprah, who nobody knows. I'm watching the debut of Whoopi Goldberg, which I didn't realize that was her debut.
Mhm.
So I'm seeing history being made, and
Mhm.
it was significant.
Mhm. I just
So
want to
that's
say
my
real quick. Now, again, I haven't seen the new movie. I've only seen the trailers. I love me some Taraji Henson. She the girl, but I'm a little bit disappointed that in the book, Suge is described as black, and in both the original movie and in this movie, Suge is more a lighter brown skinned woman. So a little bit disappointed for that, but I'll get over it. I'll live. I'll be all right.
You sound like a joke. A joke had the same critique. She like, I don't like her for Suge. I don't like, but I'm telling you, she sang that intro song. She sang that intro
Mhm.
song when she came in on that boat. She did that thing.
Well, Margaret Avery did her thing too. But I'm just
Oh,
saying, in the original book, Suge is described as a dark black woman.
yeah. Now,
Uh,
I mean, I didn't know
which
Taraji
which
could sing.
which brings up a conversation we'll have next time regarding Hollywood adaptations of literature or black women's literature. Also, men at the helm of adaptations, because from what I'm hearing from people such as my esteemed colleagues, this, I guess y'all are giving this a minus, a B plus, or maybe a plus of this adaptation, which is written by and directed by a black man. versus that unnamed special on Hulu that died a horrific death, as it should have, which was adapted by a brother who had no business adapting nothing. So we should have that discussion one day of our sister
Yeah,
Ivy work. Yeah.
I mean, I
Whew.
think that's a whole complicated
Oh,
conversation. That's a whole complicated conversation,
But I'm just
with
saying that's one we'll tackle at a later time, not today.
yeah, that's complicated because it's men, but then one, the adaptation that you don't want to mention, that yeah, it's a whole
That
other
was
thing.
horrible.
And then
That was horrible.
but this one here, you
Mhm.
know, it's directed by a man. It's directed by a man from Ghana. So
Mhm.
not being
And
from the
I haven't
South,
heard anything horrible about it. I've only heard good things about it. So I'm saying.
in terms of acting, I think it's fine, but it's like when I asked the question, was this adaptation, do you think it's an accurate depiction of
Basically.
Black Southern life? Tanda, you and
Mhm.
I can't speak to that. You and I have
Mhm.
both lived in the South, but we're not Southerners.
Right. Hmm.
I think it was an accurate depiction of how African Black Southern life is, right? And so, and I'll say this too, because this is some of my research, like the quilt. So in the book and this adaptation, the sewing part and the way in which that connects women. So Celie gets the sewing from her mother, the quilts being on the table at the end, her sitting with making Sophia quilts, all these kind of things, which are healing. It's a way of passing down story. It is whatever. And I felt like because that is such an African thing when the women come in pattern, to get back to, well, why is it that these pattern quilts that look like, and sometimes kente cloth, other kind of cloth, strip quilts, and I can show you papers I've written on it, right? I've written on this, so but long story. That is a way in which it's an Africanism people kept alive that we call just Southern, right? Foodways, we just talked about Hop and John and all this other kind of stuff, which are Africanisms that we kept alive, that are we call Southern soul food, but that's our way we kept Africa alive in the South. And that to me is what the true South is. That it shows that it's not, that really their world didn't revolve around white people. And when white people came in the scene, you
Hmm.
see what happened with the mayor's wife, right? Oh, well, come work for me, Sophia. Yes. Oh, you would look like you would love to work for me, wouldn't you? It's like violence. It's like because it protects this perfect little African village that these people live in, where they have polygamy, where you have people got multiple women. In the case of Squeak and Sophia, they were both. Harpo's still married, right? And had children with Squeak. Sophia had children with Buster the prize fighting man or whatever his name was. And everybody don't say nothing, right? It's like you living in a village where a man has multiple wives. They got all children that are connected. The system keep on running. And I think that was Alice Walker's point, right? Like this is like these little African villages. This is my home. These are my family members that I remember, and literally just challenging it. So that's what I recognize. And I thought making the landscape such a part of it, the Georgia landscape that people will recognize if you're from Georgia, such a part of this movie. Even the church that they go to, I thought was really important. And the original church in the first Color Purple was also in Georgia, but it was just, I thought, great.
Okay, Nozibele, close us out. You got a comment?
Um, one of the things that I can say, I really appreciated what Corrie said earlier, because I think that's some of the resistance that I had to seeing the movie, of thinking about it as its own thing, right? That we have to see that it is something that is perfectly fit for the time. And when I think about the color purple, I think about African American women and their resilience. our ability to not only, just like the color purple has been reimagined, African American women's ability to reimagine ourselves, to create worlds for ourselves, and to find loving amongst ourselves. And let's not forget that sisterhood is the most healing balm of everything. And I know that we talk about that in the South, but I know Northerners have it, East Coast people have it, that you find your collection and your crew of sisters, you stick with them, you love up on them, because as my mom and my aunt has always said, men come and go, but a true sister is there with you forever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Hashay, I don't think there's anything else to be said beyond that. So, if you liked what you heard today, do me a favor, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, share this video. It helps with the algorithm if you share the video on, so we see people today. Thank you for engaging in the conversation. Thank you, Lynn. Thank you, Dr. McCray. Let me see. Thank you, Don. Thank you, Alethea. Like, thank you, Ronke. All the people that made comments today. I appreciate you. We appreciate you just thinking that we are significant enough, our voices are significant enough that you would actually come in, tune in on the first Fridays of every month and hear what we have to say. We were here every single first Friday. So we will see you in February. My name is Dr. Ifetayo Ojelade. I am based in Atlanta. I'm a licensed psychologist. Right next to me is Dr. Corrie Claiborne. She's an associate professor of literature at Morehouse College. Underneath her is Professor Nozibele Insabu Kaumba Antoinette Waithe, who is an anthropologist
Wow.
and the owner of Grand Tressa. And then we have a social commentator, author, and all around good sister that wakes up early in the morning on that left coast and comes and talks with us, Thandisizwe Chimurenga. So we will see y'all next month. Take care.
Peace.
Peace and chicken.